length where it's going to be an adequate intervention. So I prefer that we explore other options. We have not completely counted out looking at our school calendar and potentially adding days. I would not advocate to do that at the end of this school year, however, because hopefully we're going to be in a better state come June with COVID, and I have no doubt that many of our families are going to be planning vacations and are probably anxious to be able to take some family vacations. So if we did look at the potential of adding days onto the school year, that's something we would explore for next year. We would work with and collaborate with our Medina's Teachers Association, as well as OPSE and our Psychologist Association in determining that, because that does impact our contract with our union organizations. Right now, we are being told that funding is going to be available to support these efforts of the extended student learning. We have not yet seen that money. The federal government has set aside several billions of dollars that are supposed to go to school districts across the country. We have been told by the state that we can expect to receive 4 times the amount of financial support that we received for the CARES Act at the beginning of the year. Again, you never know what happens when it comes to the state and state budget. So I'm hoping that we do indeed receive that and that we're able to utilize portions of that to offset some of the costs for the extended learning. I do want to make sure everybody's aware, though, that we have spent additional monies in order to put all of our protocol in place, whether it's the purchasing of plexiglass, the purchasing of online programming, adjustments in staffing, misters, foggers. So even with that money, we are still working on making up many of the additional costs that we already have. So we'll see how far that money goes. Either way, we're dedicated to providing extended student learning opportunities heading into next year and then next year as well. I do have to commend our teachers and our principals. I have popped around in the buildings and popped my head in some classrooms, and I can tell you that many of these extended learning opportunities are already happening. Our teachers have naturally woven that within their regular instruction. They are going back and they're covering other topics as they're moving forward, and they're doing a nice job at it. It was about a month ago, I stopped in a teacher's classroom and she was a little embarrassed about what she was teaching her class because it was actually some curriculum from last year. And I told her that's absolutely what she should be doing. So she intertwined that within the lesson with the new material as well. Next thing up is teaming. Teaming was intended to be implemented for this current school year. Those plans were cut short because of the pandemic, and that was for financial reasons. At the time, we didn't know what we were looking at in terms of reductions, but we were getting word from the state that we could be looking at significant reductions. These significant reductions didn't go fully into place. The second round of cuts, we were told, are actually not going to happen when they were initially supposed to be double of what the first one is. So we are in the process of getting our teaming committee back together to get teaming implemented for next school year. This is something that is already and has been worked into the 5-year forecast. So this does not put additional expenditures into the 5-year forecast. Despite not implementing it and not knowing where we were going financially, I'm thankful that Dave kept that within the forecast because it has really helped us in the long term with the planning and making sure that we're keeping those initiatives alive. I want to invite Paul Warsencroft. He is principal at Claggett. Teaming is a middle school initiative, and he's just going to share a little bit of information with the board on where things are at in regards to teaming in the coming school year.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me? Okay. I believe Ryan is pulling up the slideshow. Thank you. Good. So many of you understand all the things that have gone into making this reality for next year. And as Mr. Sable said, we thought it was going to occur this current school year, but with current situations, we all understand that. So as a review, we have a few slides here to just walk the board through and the community through what we've been doing all last year and since. So teaming is a structure of the schedule that, as you can see, allows for students to be placed with smaller groups. If you can imagine, each of the middle schools have approximately anywhere from 250 to 300 students per grade level. So instead of grouping all 300 or so sixth grade students or seventh grade students in a grade level, we condense them down and we split them into 2 to 3 different smaller groups or teams. Each of those teams have 4 core teachers, a language arts, a math, a science, and a social studies teacher that focus on those 100 to 120 students in that team. We have been under this instructional model before, prior to the 2007, 2008, or 2008, 2009 school year. Both Clogan and Root did fall under teaming guidelines and the model. So teaming 2.0 is what we'll call it, that we hope to start for next year. Go ahead onto the next slide, Ryan. A few things, well, many things are the same, but a few are different. So first of all, I'd like to kind of go through social emotional aspect of teaming. As you well know, students coming into the 6th grade, 11 and 12 years old, that transition is very difficult for students on an academic level as well as a social and emotional level. Because we can group students in a smaller group, there's varying levels of support that adults can give students when they're on a smaller team. The adults know the students much better. The adults can talk with each other and decide what's best for that student because they have seen them, because they've discussed them. All these things are taken into account in teaming. You can see that, like I said, their students are housed with 100 students on each team. They have the same 4 core teachers. Those 4 teachers can collaborate, and I'll talk a little bit about how and when they collaborate in the next couple of slides. But the idea is that students feel a little bit more, they belong a little bit more when they're on a team. There's lots of things that teachers do to allow them to have that sense of well-being, that sense of a smaller atmosphere, rewards and little ceremonies and certificates. Those are all types of things that are done on a team to help those kids feel a little bit more accepted on their teams. Teachers will have built-in collaboration time built into their day, where we have outlined several things for that team to do and to discuss during that shared time. One of the things we've talked about is a time for PBIS, that's the Positive Behavior Intervention and Support, that we've been doing for several years, but this gives a specific time devoted to discussing what types of rewards are we going to give kids, what types of behavioral incentives, how we're going to communicate with parents, basically how to support students and maximize the potential for success for all students. The academic aspect, lots of different aspects that like to point out, first of all, if you can remember, some of you who have been on the board for a while, several years ago, about 40 years ago, we decided to extend or elongate the math and language arts classes for the 6th grade. So we changed it from about 48 to 50 minutes per language arts and math class to over 60, between 60 and 70 minutes. So again, math and language arts are the two essential pieces of learning and growth throughout a student's academic career. So we did that with the 6th grade. A year later, we did that with the 7th grade too. Again, elongating the time that students had and staff had for math and language arts. So with teaming, with implementing teaming, we plan to do the same thing for the 8th grade students. We have not been able to do it until we move forward with teaming because of there's a lot of moving pieces and parts, but we are able to do it with teaming. How that time is going to be spent for teachers, every day they will have a period that is devoted to talking about students and their success, whether that is social, emotional, academic, or a number of many more things. But the plan is, and we collaborated with the teachers, with the middle school teachers, and the committee came up with this plan that 3 days a week, teachers will meet with their team. So that is language arts, math, science, and social studies teachers, and they will meet and discuss several of the things you see there. Academic interventions for students, interdisciplinary, IBL is inquiry-based learning units. So 21st century learning, I'm sure you've heard of those things with our Portrait of a Graduate work too. Collaboration, all those keywords. Educational experiences. So for example, we never like to have, I'm sure many of us never like to have 3 tests on one day. Well, there's time for teachers to talk and discuss and, plan those things out. So not only are we talking about, relatively minor things like test days, but, maybe interdisciplinary units where we can link a social studies and a science class, or language arts and a math class. Again, there's time for those teachers to sit and discuss and make those learning experiences happen. Project-based learning, I'm sure you've heard of that before. 2 or 3 units working together with teachers just accentuates the learning for students. And if they hear it in their math class and their science class, they can make better connections. And of course, greater opportunity for parent communication. So one of the keys there is, if a student falls behind in any number of ways, whether it's they're not doing their homework, something's going on in class, maybe they're being a little bit more disruptive lately, or something's just off, multiple teachers tend to see that within a given day. And if they're given time to talk about that, they can come up with strategies to help solve that, rectify that, call home, and come up with a plan to, again, help students succeed. So that's 3 days a week. The focus of those conversations is on the student and on those 4 core areas where that same student has those four teachers. 2 days a week will be focused on subject area. So if I am a math teacher on a team and 3 days a week I'm meeting with the language arts, social studies, and science teacher, on the other 2 days I am going to meet as a math teacher with the other math teacher on the other team. So at those meetings, we could talk about curriculum. We can talk about academic interventions specifically geared towards math. We can look at data. We can look at assessment data, what questions students tend to do very well on, what questions students do poorly on, and then take a look at that assessment and say, you know what, this probably either wasn't grasped fully by students, or maybe we should look at a different approach if every year students struggle in this particular area. So again, focused on curriculum and subject-specific conversations. And finally, we are able to implement new elective opportunities for students. Essentially, what happens is we have added a period to the day, maximized the instructional minutes during our day, adding a period, which also adds opportunities for electives. And then on the next couple slides, I'll discuss what electives those are that we're looking at bringing to the middle school. So 4 main components we're looking at. We're looking at improved discipline data. Why is that? Why are we hoping to see that? Well, because teachers and the team can look at students and try and figure out what is going on in that student's life, in that student's day, to cause them to be disruptive or not be focused or not engaged in lessons. Improved attendance data. It is a proven fact that when a student has good relationships at school, whether it's peer-to-peer relationships or peer-to-adult relationships, they tend to want to come to school more often. Improve academic scores. We've talked about that. And finally, more opportunities for kids. Just a brief timeline, just to kind of spark the memory. And I know I've been through this timeline lately in the past couple of weeks since we've been bringing up teaming again. But, this is a little over 2-year process that we've been through. September, at the beginning of the year in 2019, we formed a committee that comprised of Department of Instruction, administration, middle school teachers, guidance counselors, to talk about, the potential of bringing teaming back to Medina City schools. We visited several school districts. We visited school districts that have been teaming for 30 years. We also visited school districts that have been that have implemented teaming recently. So in more ways than one, we can relate to both of those situations. I know Olmsted Falls Middle School and Strongsville Middle School have been teaming for 20, 30 years, where other schools we visited, just implemented recently. Then a few months later, November, December, we started to form committees, and we made recommendations regarding the design. There's lots of different designs of teaming, from scheduling to teams to what teachers are on teams. Special education is a big piece as well, how that's going to be implemented and structured. We talked about professional development and which electives that we like to bring to Medina City schools. Then January of 2020, we did implement some professional development. We had a day that we brought in one of the renowned national speakers on teaming. I don't know if you've ever seen him speak or met him. Jack Berkmeyer, wonderful, wonderful educator that has many, many accolades that focus around teaming. But he came in and trained our committee, and then our committee went out and trained our teams to implement teaming. What are the first steps? What's the second steps? What do you do to implement teaming? In March, we all know what happened in March, but we did have a parent meeting in March to kind of go over what the students would expect to see different and the parents would expect to see different. But of course, everything was put on hold mid-March. This coming March, and we can even go back into January and February when we started to begin to talk about it again, we held a committee meeting again, and we started to make plans for next year if we were able to move forward. We do also plan on having another informational meeting for community members and parents, very similar to the one we had last March, because I think it's very important that that parents and students and staff, to be honest with you, understand what it's going to look like for, you know, my child. What's my child going to see differently? What is it going to be? What's it going to look like as a parent? So that's kind of a quick timeline. Ryan, go ahead to the next one. So building schedule, how it changes a little bit is social studies science will have a 42-minute period, and language arts and math will have a 63-minute period. That's that period and a half of time, that elongated time for our two most influential aspects of education. We will have 9 periods a day. That's one more than we currently have right now. And here's where the different electives will come into play. In 6th grade, we are planning on implementing a Project Lead the Way course, a computer science course. That actually replaces digital citizenship that we currently have. We're also implementing a Middle School 101. Now, this is some of the things that a lot of our 6th grade teachers do naturally. They talk about study skills. They talk about, you know, meeting new friends. They talk about what middle school is and how to, you know, how to go from class to class, what bells are, what expectations teachers have. But of course, you know, if you have 12 different 6th grade teachers talking about it, sometimes it's not always the same message, and sometimes things get missed. So Middle School 101 course will have every student take the same class and learn the same material, and we think be better prepared for middle school. 7th grade, we plan on implementing an additional Project Lead the Way class. That's a medical detectives class. I would say somewhat similar to the Project Lead the Way class at the high school that is very well loved and well received with the community and students and the staff as well. Now, as you can see there in bold and underlined, it is a collaboration with the Career Center. This is very similar to our 8th grade Project Lead the Way course, where it is a collaboration, and financially it works out for Medina City Schools. They essentially provide the teacher for us. It's our teacher, it's our Medina City School teacher. And I know Mr. Sable has talked about this in the past, but it is a mutually beneficial situation. And finally, all 8th graders will take a foreign language, whether it's Spanish or French. We have 2 different options. Students can take an 8th grade level Spanish or French course, or they can take a 9th grade, which is a little bit more advanced, and they get high school credit for that. That we are actually implementing currently. That's one of the things that we were able to do this current school year. Cost estimates, as you can see, that is an addition of 5.5 staff. 2 of those, like I've already said, is paid through by collaborating with the Career Center. That would be our Project Lead the Way, essentially our 7th grade Project Lead the Way for both Claggett and Root. And then the cost, as you can see, would be 3.5 staff members at the estimated cost of $280,000. Estimated one-time costs are the building costs that have already been completed, and some curriculum and ongoing professional development for our teachers, so that they are continually reviewing best practices for teaming. One thing to realize is many of our teachers who implemented teaming or taught during the teaming times over 12 years ago still need professional development, as well as newer teachers, so that they can understand, you know, what teaming looks like in 2021 versus 2006, 2007. So as you can see, the total down there at the bottom is $520,000 to implement this structure, which I think will be wonderful. I know that our teachers are fully behind it. They're really excited about the possible implementation, and they just can't wait to get started. I know that several teachers have been meeting all year long, even without knowing that if it was moving forward or not. But they've been meeting and planning, and hoping and praying that this will happen.
Thank you, Paul. And my last item to present to the board tonight is a career readiness initiative that's being led in our district by Shana Samowski, who is our gifted coordinator as well as gifted teacher in the district. College and career readiness was a major point of our last strategic plan, and this is part of that overall initiative, which also included a college and career guidance counselor up at the high school to specifically work in these areas. We have also had two of our portrait meetings. We have the third one tomorrow night, and this has been a reoccurring theme at the portrait meetings in terms of some of the things that parents, community members, staff, students feel are essential components for all Medina students. So I'm going to ask Shana to present about the CEO program.
Thank you for having me here tonight to talk about our new program, Career Exploration Opportunities, or CEO. Like Aaron said, this program was born from the strategic plan where we were looking to increase gifted services at Medina High School. We looked at what we had going on, and we know that we have students with multi-potentiality and many available career paths, and they benefit from some tailored career experiences or internships. This three-part program starts with 7 weeks of looking at everything in the job search process. We have speakers come in and meet with our students to talk about crafting your resume for each individual job you're applying for, crafting your digital footprint to be responsible and back up the things that one would say in their interview. Goes over interviewing, evaluating job offers, everything that goes into that job search process. The next 8 weeks are spent, students are job shadowing. They get to go through a real interview process with their job site host, and then spend the next 8 weeks learning all about the company, about all of the jobs that make that business successful. It's about 40 hours or 5 hours per week. At the end, we get back together and talk about networking and what happens if you don't get a job. How do you learn and grow from that experience? Because everything is a learning process. CEO is currently in its third semester, and I've had the opportunity to work with almost 30 students. We've placed students in spots of education, finance, dermatology, engineering, local government, film and video editing, criminal justice, marketing, real estate, and we continue to grow our program, and we are looking forward to next fall, our fourth semester, and hopefully that will be the semester that has no hiccups in it of any pandemic issues. Tonight, we'd like to share a promotional video that was made with collaboration with Medina TV, and actually we had a CEO student over at Medina TV that was helping to film most of the shots in the video. And I want to say that it was filmed, a lot of it pre-pandemic, so you'll notice that we're not wearing masks and such, but then we got shut down, so we've had to piece things together. The video will be available on the Medina V's website on our front page, just under the portrait of a graduate information. So I would like to go ahead and have Ryan share that video now.
Shana, while Ryan's sharing that video, I just want to clarify, if you could, that this program's not just for gifted students. Is that correct?
It is not just for gifted students. It's open to anyone in our district, juniors and seniors, that are interested in investing time to learn valuable life skills and to gain some experience and decide, hey, is this the job for me, before heading to college or trade school to find out in an expensive way if a job is the correct placement.
Thanks, Shana.
Mr. O'Cole, you need to turn your sound on. We can't hear.
Base program, or CEO, strives to provide students with an understanding of the job search and hiring process and how to stand out during each step.
I wanted to join the program because I kind of was in between a few things I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do something in science, but this gave me the opportunity to actually go and see a job site that I might actually want to work on.
I decided to join this program because I'm undecided on what I want to do in the future. I wanted like a good insight into what the actual career would be, and so I could really hone in on like what I want to do in my life and go to college for.
A lot of the classes that talk about getting jobs, they say that experience is really good to have experience.
I don't really hands-on experience with software development.
Well, like I said, I think first-hand experience is really valuable for adding to our college applications and also just getting a better idea of like what it is I want to do in college.
The CEO program provides hands-on learning, real interview experience, and helps them to understand, is this the right career for me?
Well, so far I've actually learned a lot about like applications and like figuring out like how to apply for jobs, as well as like being more professional in the workplace as well. I'm looking forward to getting an opportunity to practice that in my job. I think it'll benefit because it will almost give me a leg up in the competition when I'm searching for jobs in that area.
Well, how will you know what to do when I'm looking for a job, when I'm interviewing?
I want to see if I actually enjoy the career that I'm going to, presumably study in college.
The CEO program is looking for students who are motivated to learn about the job search process.
She gets to see more the practical side of law enforcement that she doesn't get to see from, I guess, a normal citizen's point of view, or what you see on TV. So she kind of gets to see the day in, day out.
It definitely was helpful having a job shadow student here from the perspective of we had Alex doing exactly real life accounting and auditing work. He was setting up some financial statements for a brand new client that we had. So we had to do it. So it's nice to have him actually do it, something that we use.
Yes, it is important to have some shadow because sometimes you forget the basics for a lot of things, and then you take a step back and go over like explaining a crime from start to finish. You know, gives you that refresher.
We are looking for local businesses that have a passion for what they do on a daily basis, and they can transfer that to our students to help our students understand everything that goes into that job, all of the people and processes that make that company a success, and to share their enthusiasm for what they do with our students.
I want to thank Shana for presenting this evening. It was nice for the board to be able to hear about the program straight from the person who played such a vital role in the development of the program. We are looking right now to expand the program. We want more students involved. In addition, we're also recruiting local and area businesses to host our students. And I do have to say that I think we're a little bit ahead of the curve with this type of initiative, which many districts are currently talking about implementing. So it's something really to be proud of.
Mr. Sable, I have a quick question on that. How are we marketing to our local businesses that we have this opportunity available?
Well, this video is certainly part of that marketing process. I can let Shana answer that question better, as she's the one who played the major role.
I am utilizing my networks for sure. A lot of word of mouth. Sometimes it's a friend of a friend or someone who knows someone. I do occasionally get an email that of a business where I was recently doing a site visit, and they'll tell a friend and they will email for more information. But it's definitely growing and it's grassroots right now. I'm excited to get this video out to get more interested businesses.
Okay, excellent. And it just hit me about including a little blurb of that in our quality profile for next year, so that prospective families who are looking to relocate to Medina, they know that this is an opportunity for their students.
That's a great idea.
Shayna, that was a great video. I think it was great to have the students' perspectives as well as those employers and businesses who are already helping out. I think I recommend that we also utilize the Medina County Economic Development Corp and our Medina Chamber to reach people in our business communities. Or some of the businesses, when we had our business advisory committee in-house, I know we had several businesses that were involved in that. It might be great to reach out to them as well, but hopefully people are watching our board meeting and can see that video as well, and you'll be getting your inbox flooded with emails.
I should have shared that Medina County Economic Development. When I developed the syllabus, I went to Kathy Breitenbutcher over there and said, what do you think of the flow of the program? And can you help me with some speakers' names? So she was very instrumental in getting my program up and rolling.
Excellent. You know, they put out a newsletter every Friday that goes out. Perhaps we can get it in there too.
Excellent.
Thank you, Shayna.
Thank you.
Mr. Skidmore, before we move on to the treasurers, I did just want to thank Mr. Warsencroft also for his presentation on teaming. And I want to give kudos to our district administrators, because I know this has been, and our teachers, I know this has been a long time coming for teaming, and they've been very patient. We had to press pause because of the state budget cuts, but I think kudos also go to our district, for being fiscally responsible. We're not getting all that money back that the state took away, but we've been fiscally responsible, and we're doing what's best for kids by bringing this back. So thank you, Mr. Warsencroft, for your presentation, and thanks to our administrative team and all of our teachers that have worked on this process as well.
Yep, thank you, Becky. And I agree with all your comments, and I think both Mr. Warsencroft and Ms. Samosky did a great job presenting there, and it'll be exciting to see both programs implemented or continue to be implemented and come to fruition. So thank you, Mr. Sable, for that great report. We appreciate it. And now we'll move on to the Treasurer's Communications. Mr. Chambers.
Yes, if it please the board, the district bank balance decreased by $2.3 million in January to $60 million. This is a $3.6 million drop below last year at this time. The general fund revenues were below last January by $650,000. The combination of state foundation funds and other funds accounted for this decrease. We had our general fund expenditures, which were also below last January at this time by $367,000. Purchase services and capital outlay contribute to the decrease. The sales tax fund balance is up to $3.3 million. The district spent approximately $68,000 in January and had a distribution from the county of $930,000. The Recreation Center Capital Fund balance is up to $266,000. The City of Medina reimbursed the school district $30,000 for expenditures, and both the city and the schools made their $100,000 yearly transfer. The district received $20,000 in investment income for January. The total collected for the current fiscal year is approximately $500,000 below last year at this time. This is in line with what we had back in fiscal year 2017. And finally, you have the district general fund true days cash estimated to be around 180 days. This is down from December by 12 days and below last year by 21 days. And it's still in line with what we planned on doing with the payment down of our bank balance back 3 years ago when we first discussed. So are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. We appreciate you, all the work you do and keeping us up to date on our finances and doing such a great job with all your forecasts. This time, number 3 is board communications. Are there any board members that would like to make a statement tonight?
Yeah, Mr. Skidmore, I'd also like to thank Mr. Warsencroft and Ms. Szymanski for their presentations. Really looking forward to see how those programs develop and what they lead to in the future. I'd also like to thank Mr. Sable and his administration once again for and Discount Drug Mart and everybody else that was involved with the vaccination event. I'm sure a lot went into hosting a well-organized event like that, and I think it looks favorable on our district when we can present a professional and efficiently run event like that. So thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to mention that I had an opportunity to watch the virtual Spice talent show this past weekend, and that was so great. They did such a great job with it, presenting it virtually. I'm always amazed by the talent of our kids. I mean, it's just amazing what our high school kids can do. And I think it was 2 weeks ago, our drama club presented their drama presentation for the winner was also virtually. She Kills Monsters, and that was just amazing as well. So I'm just so excited. I know that things are different and everyone's missing out on a lot of things, but it is just so nice to see our kids and our staff being creative and innovative and still being able to present and share opportunities for our kids, with our kids, our students, and the community at large. So thank you to everyone that's been involved in those projects.
Yeah, I just wanted to also thank Aaron and your staff for just a well-run and very efficient vaccination day. I had a chance to talk to Superintendent Andy Hill, who was also there. I think he volunteered all day, and he also thought it was very well run. And like Brian said, looks good looks favorable for our district and how we all came together and cooperated with Discount Drug Mart and put that on. So thank you. That was very well run. And the other communication I had was the rec center meeting. We're going to meet on Thursday. So just want to let everybody know that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Ross.
Mr. Skidmore, I have a little something. Again, I want to thank Aaron and the staff, Mr. Warsencroft and Shayna for all of the hard work and excellent things that are happening for the district, and putting things into terms that the parents can understand too. I just wanted to touch base because I know it's that time of the year when scheduling is occurring for not only the middle school but the high school as well. And the curriculum committee met on February 8th, and we went over and talked about the registration guide that's under the counseling tab on the website. So there are a lot of lots of good information, lots of detail on the classes that are out there. And I had, we discussed with Mrs. Cassidy and Mr. Maddie about making sure that the parents know that that information is out there on the Google Drive. But what it is it's a chart that shows what career a student might be interested in, and then recommending what courses or what classes that they should be taking in regards to following that career path. So I think that is definitely a little hidden gem. And so we're going to be working on getting that information more visible and out there. So I just wanted to let the community and the parents know about that.
Very good. All right. I don't have anything right that's pressing to report on tonight. I know a couple of our committees got postponed with the vaccination happening that week. And again, to reiterate what Mr. Hilberg said, we are very proud of the district and the efforts of Mr. Sable and Dr. Qualick and Amy Busby and the whole group to implement that, to get it done, and to have Medina in the history books as being a host for that event. So we're glad to see things moving on to getting beyond the coronavirus, and we'll also be glad not to hear about that in the future. I hope that's very soon. So we'll move on then to the action items of our treasurer, Mr. Chambers.
Yes, if it pleases the board. Item number 1, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the January 2021 Treasurer's Report. Item number 2, supplemental appropriations. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the following supplementals to the 2021 permanent appropriations. We have Rec Center 003, $100,000. John Burkhart was looking at spending this money between now and into the summer, so we have to increase the appropriations there. And then our auxiliary services, I was so happy to get these on for the auxiliary services, the transfers that occurred last month, and I forgot to put the appropriations, so they couldn't spend the monies yet, so we're allowing them to spend these monies. Item number 3, the then and now purchase order. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the following then and now. This is Columbia Gas purchase order. We had a purchase order out there, and God bless Lisa Floha. She's very good at getting quarterly POs completed. The quarterly PO for last quarter did not have enough funds estimated on this to cover this billing. This was for December's billing itself, and it was more than the recommended amount that I usually allow them to go over on purchase orders. So we had her close out the purchase order and create this new purchase order. 2 things. The other thing that was going against this was that we didn't receive the bill until after the due date, which if you look on the billing, I believe it was due February 1st. We didn't receive the bill until after that. So that's the other reason I had her create a new purchase order, because we were already behind with it, and we just needed the board to approve a new purchase order for this. She already has a new purchase order for the next quarter, January through March. So that's all we have.
Thank you. I'll make a motion that we approve your action items 1, 2, and 3.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on those?
I do have one question on that gas bill, Mr. Chambers. Is the I noticed under the high school there was a rather large increase. I know that there was the leak at Garfield, but I was just curious about the usage at the high school seemed higher. Is that correct?
The high school itself consists not only of the building, it also consists of the rec center. So if the rec center was open the entire time, which I believe it was, and the high school just started up when we started. They went back in October, and so the percentage of gas that increased. We also had the cold weather hit upon us here at the end in December. So everything coming together would have created a larger bill there at the high school, because again, that's running throughout the entire month, whereas the rest of the bills are not running throughout the entire month because the building was closed down for winter break.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome.
Okay. So if there's no other questions or comments from the board, I guess Mr. O'Call has a public comment or could have one. Do we have any on YouTube or anything? Do we know of?
I have a Zoom meeting going, and there's currently no one else on the meeting with me.
So if somebody wanted to get on that Zoom meeting briefly, how do they find that link? Is that somewhere available? If somebody
below the or I'll have Amy answer that.
It's on YouTube. There's the meeting information is located there.
Okay. And if they don't have the opportunity right now to do this, they're always welcome to go to the website for the district, medinabees.org. There's Ask the President, or they can email the superintendent or the individual board members, and we try to respond that way as well. So, okay, hearing no comment, if you could take roll, Mr. Chambers.
Yes, Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Hilberg.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Sable.
First item recommendation tonight is donations. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the following donations to Medina City Schools. There is one in particular here that I want to point out tonight. It's a rather large donation of over $25,000 to the Board of Education from the Richard Hoffman Collins Memorial Scholarship Fund to provide scholarships for Medina High School students. This is a scholarship that's been in place for some time and has benefited several of our students over the course of the past many years. Unfortunately, Mrs. Collins recently passed away, and the estate wanted to make sure that this scholarship would continue to move forward, thus the large donation. Number two, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the Memorandum of Understanding between the Medina City Schools Board of Education and the Medina City Teachers Association regarding spring co-curricular contracts. This is pretty much the identical MOU that has been presented to the board for the fall sports as well as for winter sports. And this is specific to COVID. Just not knowing clearly what's going to happen with the athletic seasons, we were able to come to this agreement with the Teachers Association, which allows us to split up the coaching contracts in case a season is cut short. We have not had to do that for the last two seasons, and I'm feeling pretty good that we're not going to have to for the spring season. When you talk about social distancing, that becomes much easier when we get our athletes back outside, which will happen this spring. Number three, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the addendum to the agreement between the Medina City School District and Ohio Guidestone to provide behavioral health services and supportive services to Medina City School District students. This contract is for up to $40,000. That does not mean we will be spending $40,000. That's why it's listed as up to. This is a definite need within the district to provide behavioral services to various students across the district. And number four is personnel. It is recommended to the board that the following personnel items be approved pending completion of all required documentation as well as completion of licensure with our Human Resources Department. We do have a resignation on here for the purpose of retirement. Typically, I've read a little statement about these individuals. I think it was our last meeting where Jim Shields was able to present one of his direct employees. So I thought it'd be nice and maybe even more meaningful to have our administrators who are working directly with these individuals present. So, Mr. Warzencroft.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Sable, and thank you, board. So Claggett Intensive Needs teacher Deb Laneville is retiring from Medina City Schools at the end of this school year. She started working at Claggett in 2001, coming to Medina City Schools with 17 years of previous teaching experience in the area of special education. Deb has always been a champion for her students, building long-lasting relationships with both her students and their families. Deb's classroom over the years focused not only on quality instruction, but also on teaching her students social skills and getting her students involved in community service projects. I, for one, know several trips to community events and community areas, as well as growing a garden right outside of Claggett for several years. Deb also spent many years at Claggett in charge of the annual school play or musical with outstanding results and top-notch performances. She currently serves as the advisor of the Claggett Builders Club, which, if you do not know, that is the middle school version of Key Club. We think Deb also may hold the record for the most Challenger League baseball games attended in Medina. If one of her students had a baseball game, Deb would be counted on to be in the stands cheering for her student athletes. We will definitely miss her many integral additions to Claggett Middle School over the past several years. She every year would dress up as Mrs. Claus, and many of her students truly believe that she was Mrs. Claus when she came in. She started Dine with Room 109, which helped her students carry and deliver meals throughout the building to our staff, and they were wonderful meals. And the students actually helped make those meals. She would always present and send in pictures of her students doing crafts, learning curriculum, doing all sorts of things around the building that we would put in our newsletters. So if you were able to read those newsletters or had a chance to scroll down to see those pictures, she was always putting students in those pictures for our staff newsletters. And to be honest, just her overall wonderful attitude towards students, towards staff, just towards education, you can see why she spent 40 years in education. So best wishes to Deb Laneville, and we wish you the best.
Thank you, Mr. Worzencroft. Mr. Sable, did you have anything else on the personnel then?
Nope.
Okay, so we have these 4 action items under the superintendent section. I would make a motion that we accept these.
I'll make it. Okay, I was going to make a motion to approve the superintendent's action items. I guess you already did that, Rob? Is that what it?
Okay, you want to second it? That sounds good. Mr. Ross, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
I just want to thank Mr. Worzencroft for what a wonderful tribute to Mrs. Lanville. It sounds like she is definitely going to be missed over at Claggett.
Every day.
It's good.
At least you got her for the rest of this year. Big shoes to fill.
And also, I really think the Collins family, that's so generous of them to leave the scholarship there to Medina. And I know the foundation helps out with a lot of those scholarships. I know this one the schools are helping with, but we think that's great. And it's nice when families decide that they want to help kids as they move on to college. So thank you for that. Any questions from the public, Mrs. Busby?
Yes. Mr. Kuhar has a question that he would like me to ask. He says, in personnel, Mike McMullen has resigned as varsity baseball coach. What do you intend to do to replace him?
That's a Mr. Sable question.
Yeah,
we can discuss that. I don't know where we're at.
Yeah, we're not quite yet prepared to announce our baseball coaches. None of our baseball coaches were included in regards to supplementals. It is important to note that Coach Kaplak is our baseball coach and has been our baseball coach all along. So we will have more information coming for parents in the coming days.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Not that I can see.
Okay. Mr. Chambers, if you could call roll.
Mr. Skidmore,
Aye.
Mr. Ross,
Aye.
Mr. Hilbert,
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik,
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. And then Mr. Sable, if those two items there under H.
Yep, 2 additional action items this evening for the board. I'd like to recommend a co-curricular appointment of Tyler Skidmore for Showtime Director. In addition, I would also like to recommend a stipend paid for by Baldwin Wallace for, again, Mr. Skidmore hosting a student teacher.
I'll make a motion to approve the action item H for superintendent's action item H.
I'll second.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? I'm going to abstain since Tyler Skidmore is my nephew on this item, H1 and 2. Any questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, if you could call roll, Mr. Chambers.
Ms. Pavlik,
Aye.
Mr. Ross,
Aye.
Mr. Hilbert,
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst,
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Abstain.
Thank you.
And at this time, we have the public participation section. Do we have the availability to do that tonight? I don't know if we do.
We do through Zoom. I only see currently it's just Amy and I on the Zoom meeting though.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not going to go ahead and read everything we normally read there. We'll wait until we have somebody that wants to do public participation. And if there's nothing else the board wants to bring up, then I'll make a motion that we go in executive session to consider the employment, dismissal, discipline, and preparation of a public employee or official, and preparation for conducting or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment. I would make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. And when we come back, we will take the board in there. Obviously, Mr. Sable, Mr. Chambers. I think will our board's attorney consult with us tonight?
Correct. Mr. Towster will be joining us as well, in addition to Dr. Kwolek and Mr. Shields.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Chambers.
Mr. Skidmore,
Aye.
Mr. Ross,
Aye.
Mr. Hilbert,
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik,
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Thank you.
When we reconvene, we will not take any action items. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Brian.
Amy, can you jump back on that Zoom?